Welcome to the Noha story where everything feels real and everything hides something deeper. This story is about the wrong seat and the wrong attitude. Priya Sharma had been awake since 4 in the morning. She had checked her bag 3 times. She had printed her ticket twice just to be safe. She had eaten a small breakfast, recited a quick prayer, and told her mother she would call the moment she landed. This was her first flight, not her first long trip, not her first adventure, but her very first time stepping onto an airplane, and her hands would not stop shaking. The airport alone had been overwhelming. The crowds, the announcements, the long moving walkways that she almost missed the turn for, but she had made it through. Security found her gate and boarded the plane with a nervous smile that she kept on her face like armor. She was visiting her younger brother Rajan in Toronto. He had moved there 2 years ago for work and kept begging her to visit. She had finally saved enough, finally taken the time off from her job at the textile shop, and finally bought the ticket. She had even paid a little extra because the website offered something called a Comfort Plus seat. And she thought that meant more space. She was not entirely sure what she had purchased, but she had been hopeful. The moment she stepped onto the plane, that hope met its first obstacle. "You are blocking the easel." The voice came from behind her before she had even fully entered. She turned to find a flight attendant with a name tag that read Donna, standing with her arms crossed and her eyes already heavy with impatience. "I'm so sorry," Priya said quickly. "I'm just trying to find my seat." "Then find it faster. Other people are boarding." Priya moved forward and checked her ticket again. Row 14, seat C. She found the row, found the seat, and immediately felt the confusion settle in. The seat looked smaller than she had imagined. She had expected something different, something that matched the words Comfort Plus. She flagged down Donna, who was passing by with the expression of someone counting down the minutes of shift they were resented. "Excuse me, I think there might be a mistake with my seat. I paid for something extra, a comfort upgrade." Donna stopped. She looked at Priya, then looked at the seat, then back at the Priya with an expression that carried something sharp underneath the professional surface. "There is no comfort upgrade on this flight. Every economy seat is the same." "But I paid extra on the website." "Then you paid for nothing." Donna said it flatly without any softness. "This is your seat. Sit in it." Priya felt heat rise in her cheeks. She was not the type of a person who made sense. She was not the type of person who made scenes. She had grown up being told that patience was virtue and that kindness cost nothing. She breathed in slowly. "Could I speak with someone about getting a possible upgrade? I do not mind paying the difference." Donna titled her head. Her eyes moved over Priya in a way that felt like an assessment, the kind that had nothing to do with tickets or seats. "You want to upgrade to business class? If that is possible, yes. Do you have any idea what that costs?" "I'm willing to find out." Something shifted in Donna's expression. It was not with a smile. It was something colder than that. "Follow me," she said, but her tone had not warmed at all. As Priya walked behind her towards the front of the plane, she passed a woman sitting in the window seat of a row 11. The woman had kind eyes and a small paper bag resting on her lap. She glanced up at Priya and offered a smile, quick smile, and the kind that said, "I see you," without saying a single word. That woman was Camille Ossie. a traveling nurse, heading home after a 3-week rotation at a rural hospital. She had been watching the exchange from the moment it started. She had heard every word Donna said. She had noticed the tone underneath the tone. She turned back to her book, but her attention never fully left the easel. Priya was shown to a business class seat and told someone would come to process her payment. She sat down, exhaled, and pressed her fingers together in her lap. She told herself the hard part was over. She did not know it had not even started. And 3 rows behind her, in a window seat near the wing, a quiet older man in a grey jacket folded his newspaper and rested it on his knee. He had not missed a single moment of what had just happened. He said nothing, he simply watched. His name was Gerald Whitmore, and nobody on that flight had any idea who he was. The snacks that started everything. Priya had finally begun to relax. The business class seat was wide and comfortable, and she had spent the first hour of the flight simply looking out the window at the clouds below. She had never seen anything like it. The world from up here looked peaceful, soft, like someone had stretched white cotton across the sky and left it there to rest. She took a small video on her phone and sent it to her brother Rajan with a message that said, "I finally made it into the sky." He replied with 3 hearts emojis and voice note of himself laughing with joy. She smiled and put her phone away. Her shoulders, which had been tight since 4 in the morning, slowly began to drop. She closed her eyes for a few minutes, listened to the quiet hum of the engines, and let herself feel something close to peace. Then Jonah appeared. She came down the aisle with a drink cart, moving with the efficiency of someone who had done this job so many times that it had lost all meaning. She stopped at each row, delivered items without much expressions, and moved forward. When she reached Priya, she stopped and looked at her the way someone looks at a problem they are not in the mood to solve. "What do you want?" Donna asked. Priya sat up straighter. "Could I please have an orange juice and a small bag of chips?" Donna did not move. She looked at Priya, then at the cart, then back at Priya again. Her expression shifted into something that was almost a smile, but carried no warmth inside it. "Chips?" Donna repeated. "Yes, please." "Are you sure that is what you want?" Priya blinked. "I'm sorry." "I'm just saying," Donna began, lowering her voice slightly but not enough. "We have better options, healthier options, things that would actually do you some good." The words landed quickly, but they landed hard. Priya felt the familiar heat return to her cheeks. She understood exactly what Donna was saying. She had heard it before in different words from different people. That particular kind of comment dressed up as concern, wrapped in a tone that pretended to be helpful while being something much more cruel. "I would like the chips and the orange juice," Priya said carefully, "please. I really think you should consider the fruit plate. It is much lighter, more appropriate." "Appropriate for what?" Priya asked. Donna smiled now, and it was worse than the frown had been. "You know what I mean. Let us not pretend." From row 11, Camille also looked up from her paperback. She had been listening. She had caught every word, including the ones Donna had tried to soften with a lowered voice. Camille had spent 3 weeks in a rural hospital watching people fight through exhaustion and pain with dignity and courage. She had very little patience left for smallness dressed up as superiority. She set her book down and leaned slightly into the easel. "Excuse me," Camille said, her voice steady and clear. Donna turned. She asked for chips and orange juice. Camille said, That is a perfectly reasonable request. Please bring it to her. Donna's expressions sharpened. This is not your conversation. You made it everyone's conversation when you said it loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. Camille kept her tone even, not aggressive, not shaking, simply firm. No one asked for your opinion on what she should eat. Your job is to bring what she ordered. A man across the aisle looked up from his laptop. A young couple near the window exchanged a glance. The quiet of the cabin had shifted into something more alert, the kind of stillness that happens when people realize something real is unfolding in front of them. Donna turned back to Priya. I was only trying to help. You are not helping, Priya said softly but clearly. You have not been kind to me since I stepped onto this plane. Not once, and I have done nothing to deserve any of it. Something flickered in Donna's expressions, not regret, more like irritation at being caught. If you have a complaint, you can fill out a form when we land, Donna said. A form? Camille repeated. She should not need a form to be treated like a human being. Donna straightened up, gripped the cart handle, and looked between the two women with the expression of someone who had decided they no longer cared about the outcome of a conversation. I will get your chips, she said to Priya, without any tone at all now, just flat words, stripped of everything. She moved the cart forward without another glance. Priya exhaled slowly. Her hands were trembling slightly in her lap, and she pressed them flat against her knees to steady them. She looked over at Camille, who gave her a small nod, the kind that means you are not invisible and you are not alone. Thank you, Priya said quickly. You do not need to thank me, Camille replied. You handled that with more grace than most people could. Priya turned back to the window, and clouds were still there, still soft, still peaceful, but something had changed in the air inside the cabin. A tension that had not been there before now sat between the seats like a passenger nobody had invited. 3 rows behind Priya, Gerald Whitmore had not returned to his newspaper. He had been watching the entire exchange with the focused stillness of a man who had spent decades learning to observe before he accepted. He had been watching the entire exchange with the focused stillness of a man who had spent decades learning to observe before he acted. His jaw was set, his expression had shifted from quick interest to something quieter and more serious. Reached into the inner pocket of his grey jacket and touched something there, a small card, the kind that carried more weight than its size suggested. He did not take it out yet, but he was getting ready to. There was the man who was not recognized. The last 2 hours of the flight had settled into an uneasy quiet. Priya had eaten her chips slowly, sipped her orange juice, and watched the clouds thin out as the plane began its gradual descent toward Toronto. She had tried to return to the peaceful feeling she had found earlier, that wide open sense of the wonder she felt when she first saw the world from above. But it was harder now. The words Donna had said kept replying in her mind, not loudly but steadily, the way a song gets stuck and refuses to leave no matter how many other thoughts you try to fill the space with. She was not a woman who cried easily. She was not a woman who cried easily. She had worked since she was 19. Had reported her mother through a difficult illness, had saved for years for this one trip. She knew who she was. She knew her own worth. She knew her own worth, but knowing your worth and feeling it are 2 different things. And right now, somewhere between the clouds and the runway, she felt very small. Camille had checked on her once more, leaning over from her seat to ask if she was doing better. Priya had smiled and said yes, it was half true. Then the seat belt sign came on. The cabin began preparing for landing. Trays were folded up, bags were stowed, and Donna moved through the aisle doing her final checks with the efficiency of someone finishing a task. Nothing more. When she passed Priya without a word or a glance, Priya simply looked out the window. That was when Gerald Whitmore stood up. He was not a tall man, but he carried himself in a way that made the space around him feel deliberate. His grey jacket was neat, his silver hair combed back cleanly, and his hands were steady as he stepped into the aisle and walked toward the front of the cabin. He moved with the calm of someone who had made decisions in rooms full of important people and never once lost his composure. Donna spotted him approaching and moved to the intercept. Sir, the seat belt sign is on. You need to return to your seat. Gerald stopped in front of her. He looked at her for a moment without speaking, the way someone looks at something they are trying to understand fully before responding to it. I will return to my seat in a moment, he said. His voice was quiet and unhurried. But first I want to speak with you about what happened on this flight. Donna's expressions tightened. If you have a complaint, sir, there is a process for that. I'm aware of the process, Gerald said. I helped design it. I helped design it. Donna blinked. I'm sorry. Gerald reached into the inner pocket of his grey jacket and produced the small card he had been holding since row 14. He held it out to her between two fingers. Donna took it, she read it, and the color left her face so quickly and completely that even the passengers nearby noticed the change. The card read, Gerald Whitmore, Chairman and Founder, Whitmore Aviation Group. Whitmore Aviation Group was not a small name in the industry. It was the parent company behind 3 major airlines brands across North America, including the one operating this very flight. Gerald Whitmore did not sit on boards, he built them. He did not attend meetings, he called them. I have been sitting in row 17 since takeoff, Gerald said, still in that same quiet, unhurried voice. I heard everything that happened at the boarding gate. I heard what you said about this passenger seat and what she could or could not afford. I heard what you said when she ordered her food. I heard every word, and so did half this cabin. Donna opened her mouth, then closed it. I want to be clear, Gerald continued, that what I witnessed today is not a bad moment or a misunderstanding. What I witnessed was a pattern, a deliberate, repeated pattern of cruelty directed at a passenger who responded to every single one of your commands with patience and dignity that frankly you did not deserve. The cabin had gone completely still. Not the polite stillness of people pretending not to listen, the honest stillness of the people who had stopped pretending entirely. Calmly sat with her hands folded in her lap, watching. Priya turned from the window. She was looking at Gerald with an expression that had not yet caught up to what was happening. I'm not going to ask you to apologize, Gerald said to Donna. An apology at this point would be for your benefit, not hers. What I'm going to tell you is that your employment with this airline ends today. You will receive formal documentation when we land, and the full record of this flight, including accounts from multiple passengers, will be included in that file. Donna's voice came out thin and unsteady. You cannot do this over the flight. I can, Gerard said simply, and I want you to understand something. It is not the one flight, it is the certainty with which you behaved. You are not nervous, you are not having a bad moment, you are comfortable. That tells me this is not new. Donna said nothing more. There was nothing left to say. Gerald turned and walked back down the aisle. He stopped beside Priya's seat and looked at her with an expression that was warm and genuinely regretful. I'm sorry, he said. not on behalf of paperwork or policy. Personally, you came onto this flight excited and nervous and full of hope, and someone used that vulnerability as a target. That should not have happened. Priya looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were bright but steady. Thank you, she said, for seeing it. A lot of people see things like that and look away. I know, Gerard said. I have looked away before in my life and I am not proud of it. Not today. He reached into his jacket again and produced a small envelope. He placed it gently on the tray in the front of her. Your return flight from Toronto will be complimentary, business class, properly booked this time. And if you ever fly with us again and experience anything less than complete respect, I want you to contact me directly. Priya looked at the envelope and then back at him. You really did not have to do this. No, Gerard agreed, but that is exactly why I wanted to. From row 11, Camille smiled and picked up her paperback again. Outside the window, Toronto was coming into view, golden and white beneath a clear afternoon sky. Priya looked out at it and felt something return that she had almost lost somewhere between the boarding gate and the clouds. Not just peace, something sturdier than that, the quiet, solid knowledge that kindness still existed in the world. That it showed up in unexpected people at unexpected moments, and that she had been seen today, fully and completely by a stranger who chose not to look away. The wheels touched the runway gently. She was here, she had made it, and the sky, she decided, was not so frightening after all. So in this story, we learned many things about the humbleness, about the kindness, and about the professional way of attitude with your passenger. And anything else like this, we should keep our expressions of our way of talking with our customers just like professionals, that may make them comfortable in any way. Thank you.